This video will cover the buyer-broker exclusive employment agreement. Line 1 states buyer or tenant's names. Line 2, firm name, Realty One Group, and agent name, me, Heather MacPherson, your agent. Line 3, term of the agreement, start date and expiration date. Line 4, employment. Broker agrees to locate a property meeting the following general description. Negotiate at buyer's direction to obtain acceptable terms and conditions for the purchase, exchange, option, or lease of the property. Assist buyer during the transaction within the scope of broker's expertise and licensing. Line 10, agency relationship. The agency relationship between buyer and broker shall be as set forth in the real estate agency disclosure and election form or otherwise stated. Line 13, retainer fee, if applicable. Buyer agrees to pay broker a non-refundable fee in the amount of X, which is earned when paid for initial consultation and research. This fee shall or shall not be credited against any other compensation owed by buyer to broker as pursuant to lines 28 through 32. Property viewings. Buyer agrees to work exclusively with broker and be accompanied by broker on buyer's first visit to any property. If broker does not accompany buyer on the first visit to any property, including a model home, new home lot, or open house held by a builder, seller, or other real estate broker, buyer acknowledges that the builder, seller, or seller's broker may refuse to compensate broker, which will eliminate any credit against the compensation owed by buyer to broker. Due diligence. Once an acceptable property is located, buyer agrees to act in good faith to acquire the property and conduct any inspections or investigations of the property that buyer deems material and or important. Line 22. Please note, buyer acknowledges that pursuant to Arizona law, sellers, lessors, and brokers are not obligated to disclose that a property is or has been the site of a natural death, suicide, homicide, or any crime classified as a felony, owned or occupied by a person exposed to HIV or diagnosed as having AIDS or any other disease not known to be transmitted through common occupancy of real estate, or located in the vicinity of a sex offender. Line 26. Buyer agrees to consult the Arizona Department of Real Estate Buyer Advisory to assist in buyer's inspections and investigations. Line 28. Compensation. Buyer agrees to compensate broker as follows. The amount of compensation shall be X, or the compensation broker receives from seller or seller's broker, whichever is greater. In either event, buyer authorizes broker to accept compensation from seller or seller's broker, which shall be credited against any compensation owed by buyer to broker pursuant to this agreement. Broker's compensation shall be paid at the time of and as a condition of closing, or as otherwise agreed upon in writing. Buyer agrees to pay such compensation if within X calendar days after termination of this agreement, buyer enters into an agreement to purchase, exchange, option, or lease any property shown to buyer or negotiated by broker on behalf of buyer during the term of this agreement, unless buyer has entered into a subsequent buyer-broker exclusive agreement with another broker. If completion of any transaction is prevented by buyer's breach or with the consent of buyer other than as provided in the purchase contract, the total compensation shall be due and payable by buyer. Commissions payable are not set by any board or association of realtors or multiple listing service, or in any manner other than as negotiated between broker and buyer. Page 2 starts with additional terms, if need be. Line 48, equal housing opportunity. Broker's policy is to abide by all local, state, and federal laws prohibiting discrimination against any individual or group of individuals. Broker has no duty to disclose the racial, ethnic, or religious composition of any neighborhood, community, or building, nor whether persons with disabilities are housed in any home or facility, except that broker may identify housing facilities meeting the needs of a disabled buyer. Other potential buyers. Buyer consents and acknowledges that other potential buyers represented by broker may consider, make offers on, or acquire an interest in the same or similar properties as buyer is seeking. Line 54, Alternative Dispute Resolution, ADR. Buyer and broker agree to mediate any dispute or claim arising out of or relating to this agreement in accordance with the mediation procedures of the applicable state or local realtor association, or as otherwise agreed. All mediation costs shall be paid equally by the parties. In the event that mediation does not resolve all disputes or claims, the unresolved disputes or claims shall be submitted for binding arbitration. In such event, the parties shall agree upon an arbitrator and cooperate in the scheduling of an arbitration hearing. If the parties are unable to agree on an arbitrator, the dispute shall be submitted to the American Arbitration Association, AAA, in accordance with the AAA arbitration rules for the real estate industry. The decision of the arbitrator shall be final and non-appealable. Judgment on the award rendered by the arbitrator may be entered in any court of competent jurisdiction. Line 62, Attorney fees and costs. In any non-realtor association proceeding to enforce the compensation due to broker pursuant to this agreement, the prevailing party shall be awarded their reasonable attorney fees and arbitration costs. Line 64, Arizona law. This agreement shall be governed by Arizona law and jurisdiction is exclusively conferred on the state of Arizona. Line 65, copies and counterparts. This agreement may be executed by facsimile or other electronic means and in any number of counterparts. A fully executed facsimile or electronic copy of the agreement shall be treated as an original agreement. Entire agreement. This agreement and any addenda and attachments shall constitute the entire agreement between buyer and broker, shall supersede any other written or oral agreements between buyer and broker, and can be modified only by a writing signed by buyer and broker. Capacity. Buyer warrants that buyer has the legal capacity, full power and authority to enter into this agreement and consummate the transaction contemplated hereby on buyer's own behalf or on behalf of the party the buyer represents as appropriate. Line 72, Acceptance. Buyer hereby agrees to all of the terms and conditions herein and acknowledges receipt of a copy of this agreement. Buyer and broker will sign on the following lines, 73 through 77. If you have any questions about this form or any of the forms in the library, please call or text me anytime to discuss.